All right, here we go again. Buckle up. So, what we got going on now is I have to provide a clean submission for government to act on what I've been suggesting. So, it's going to be it, and then I'll post it to some of the senators' pages and things. So, in American tradition, we have a chain of command, and we have a point of contact in that chain of command for each level of effectuation of the mission. We have a great system, fire and EMS system, obviously the best in the world. But what we're lacking is a certain level of organization. There needs to be the U.S. fire chief, and that needs to be the person that coordinates this entire mess into something less messy. So we are running to the fire valiantly. But what are we not doing? We're not all running together to the days before the fire when we know conditions are such. So once the fire happens, once the location is overcome by the conditions that the fire actually exists, then we start fighting it. And that's where we're going wrong. Again, this goes back over a decade as far as what I've been suggesting for a fire and EMS NORAD type of system, early warning, uh, uh, rapid deployment system, right, that kind of thing. So we're behind the times. Eventually, this will obviously develop into an AI system, but that's not necessary. We have sufficient knowledge. We knew that this was coming. Now, the Lord has blessed and showed us some insight. Again, I'm not here to blame Gavin Newsom. I'm not here to blame Elon. I'm not here to blame Karen Bass. I'm not here to blame Joe Biden. I'm not here to tell us that Trump's going to save us. Okay, we're going to get out of politics. But Trump can save us, and I think this is an appropriate program for his administration to take on early. Don't worry about the study and the full funding. Provide the initial funding, the position for the U.S. fire chief, and at least six or seven, I think seven's the number, of deputy fire chiefs regional. So we're going to take that system that we already have and we're going to organize it so that our fire departments are called upon early to provide the support uh, for what we see. We've been given a view from uh, LAX up into that Pacific Palisades fire. Now, you may hear me speak about God's judgment. That's still there. I still speak that, but I actually am also a human here, and I will help you get forward of what ails you in whatever way I need to. So, what we know is that there's a window of that fire that we're looking at. There's no response. There's no uh, aircraft flying overhead, dropping a flame, a fire retardant, or water, or helicopters. There's nothing there. It's just happening. It's getting bigger. Now that moment existed an hour prior, 2 hours prior, 3 hours prior, whenever it started up. There is a rumor that there was possibly a fire that was put out that rekindled. That'll be part of our system. We need fire drones. When we put a fire out, a drone monitors that location for at least 24 hours. And it will call us in if it detects a hot spot or rekindling, so we don't get to that moment that we are at the moment in many fires across the United States. It'll take time to put it all into action, but I think in high priority zones such as LA, it's really going to pay off. Again, we know there was no response to that fire during that window. So, what should have happened when we knew those conditions are going to exist, the U.S. fire chief and the regional deputy fire chief begin moving assets that are within the U.S. catalog. We know they exist. Joe Biden just moved them. Some of those assets should have been moved 3 or 4 days earlier. Do we blame Joe Biden? No, but the system doesn't exist. I'm creating a system and attempted to create a system 10 years ago or so that doesn't exist. And once we create it, then we'll be better off. Will there still be fires? Of course. Will there be less fires? Of course. That Pacific Palisades fire would not have existed with my system because at LAX itself will be a couple of U.S. fire aircraft ready to go. And that moment where we see it not being tended to, maybe even an hour prior, will not exist. So it's a malady of our current fire and rescue system or fire EMS system that all of this exists, and we have to fix it. They again, you needed to control people that are trying to destroy my life because they are blocking these fixes. They're disgusting. They're piggish people. You need to block them. You need to take them down. They need to be arrested and thrown in prison the rest of their life. So we need to create the U.S. fire chief. I think that's great optics for Donald Trump. He was the first president to appoint a U.S. fire chief. We currently have a U.S. fire administrator. Now that's just an administrative position. We want operational positions. We want somebody that is in charge of all our firefighters. We want somebody that's in charge of all our aircraft. And that's that go-to person. So when the Senate leader wants to speak to somebody in charge of fires, he goes, "Oh, U.S. Fire Chief, give me a call." Or he calls up the U.S. Fire Chief saying, "Can let me speak to the U.S. Fire Chief." Again, it's not the idea of taking something away from the local governments. It's enhancing it. It's organizing it. It's cataloging it with the U.S. because we'll know what's in the local inventory. We'll ask locals for assistance. But instead of saying, okay, now we're going to come and we're going to fight the fire with you in California now it's out of control, we're going to fight that fire before it even starts. Because we're all going to be there ready to go with that aircraft that we send after the fact so they can put the fire out before it even starts. Overkill. That's just, I don't care if it's a smoldering little piece of tinder. We're gonna take a DC-10 and we're gonna fly overhead and put it out. Because that's the way to do it. That's the way to save lives. It's going to save us money. I mean, can you imagine what we're going to pay for all this? I mean, I already know. We got probably we got millionaires and billionaires getting $300, $400 a day in California to live in a hotel room because their multi-million-dollar house burnt down. I mean, this is how insane it's going to get. So let's fix this nonsense before it happens. And that guy doesn't have to go crazy because he found his little doggy. I mean, I'm like, that's what's wrong with this country. This is our focus. This multimillionaire guy with a multimillionaire property finding his dog, and we're all so happy for him, right? Because that's all we can worship, right? Can't worship anything decent, anything real. Just going to worship illegal immigrants and apartheid, right? So here's a natural-born U.S. citizen invoking his natural-born status to tell you this is what we need to do. Again, I have more description in some of my other videos, but they may be a little crazy because I had to battle through the corruption around here in Kansas before I can get the message out to the Senate and the House. So the first thing you do is get that U.S. fire chief and those 6, or actually 7. The 7th comes from Hawaii, Alaska. And I think that person might take over Puerto Rico. Right. So we'll have 7 regions. And like I said, you can just see it. The Lord laid out the plan that there's something missing in our response. And again, we don't want to go to politics. We just want to fix it. The fire people on the ground were like, well, we don't see anything wrong because that's the system we use. So they know that just a little bit of missing water wouldn't have made that much of a difference. That particular missing water would have prolonged the misery. We would have been able to fight it a little bit longer. And yeah, maybe that would have saved a life or two. I don't know. But we need to fix it. Right. So we see those super soakers, super scoopers. Those are very interesting aircraft. We need to either purchase those or improve on that design. That gives us a very... A very continuous flow of water where we're not going to run out as long as there's a body of water to scoop from. And in California, obviously, that works. So again, another thing is the creation of the fire drone program where these drones monitor for fires. We'll come up with additional things that will be created over time and put into this inventory. We already have an inventory. I think we need to enhance it. I think some money should be spent on additional aircraft. However, we already have the inventory. We just need that person. I mean, it's American as apple pie. You just need that person, that fire chief, that's responsible for all of it. Now, of course, that person doesn't, isn't the only person involved. There's a whole team of people underneath that person. And that person, it'll save us a lot of money. I mean, these fires are costing us an ungodly amount of money. It'll also help us in these other natural disasters. So we'll be able to organize what's going on. We'll be able to call on local governments, state and local governments prior to that moment. California's got a moment going on. We need augmentees. We need assistance. Contact U.S. Fire Chief if you're in. We'll have some sort of automated system. They'll come up on a roster and they'll be deployed. Again, along with U.S. assets. There's no reason that fire got out of control other than we did not have a system in place that was organized. It's actually military science. We're actually going to use, and what I am using in designing this is a certain level of military science. What we already use in our combat preparations, combat status, our deployments and things around the globe. We're going to use that for the fire people, and they're going to understand how it works. And again, the key is early detection, an early detection system, and a rapid deployment system. We already have the early detection system in place. We're simply not acting on it. And the idea of not putting in the U.S. Fire Chief is passe. Get that out of your minds. We will have a U.S. Fire Chief. And that U.S. Fire Chief will be the number one fire officer in the United States, just like we have the Attorney General. And that's how it's going to work. There's no other system that needs to be put in place other than what I'm describing. And then all that stuff we already have, that entire inventory and catalog of U.S. firefighting people and gear and state and local firefight will go into a database. And we'll be able to move it and work it so that we're not out there fighting these fires. We're actually out there destroying a fire before it ever would exist. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.